And we're back with some more NBA observations to get you through those summer months. It's Gerald Glassford. Truly appreciate you joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe. Hit that 5-star review if you're listening to me out there on audio podcast outlets. And of course, if you can, make sure you give us that thumbs up on YouTube. And you know what? Just make sure you let people know what we're doing, that we're still alive right here at the Lakers Fast Break with some NBA observations. And as always, we have a great NBA observer, and there's no less greatness here because, of course, he is the man behind the J Notes. So much of the J Notes are still being coordinated by the man himself. Indeed, please go ahead and check out what he's talking about when it comes to the Utah Jazz with the J Notes at thejnotes.com. It is, of course, my good friend, Mr. Matt John. Matt, great to have you back on the show. Hoping your summer has been a good one indeed.
Well, I am sleeping better, so that is always a plus. Not out of the blue, but compared to last year, this is much better.
This is much better indeed. I can imagine that for Utah. And we'll get into Utah, some thoughts. It's not that time yet where I call upon you to go ahead really into depth as far as a team report because I think I will do that this year where I go around and get the 30 team reports. Plus I think I'll probably bring you on for the Boston team report too, because I know that you have an affiliation as far as that as well. So with that said though, Utah over the summer months, I feel in many ways it's like an NBA 2K team. I'll tell you why. Actually, not just NBA 2K. My days of playing basketball, and especially as far as in the video game scene, I went ahead, especially in the early 2000s. Doesn't matter if it was NBA 2K, it doesn't matter if it was NBA Live, doesn't matter if it was Microsoft's NBA version of their basketball game. I tried to get the tallest team possible. So I would accrue every 7-footer I could get my hands on and just bring out a lineup with guard 7 foot whatever, both guards 7 foot whatever, both forwards 7 foot whatever, and center 7 foot whatever, and try to see if you could shoot over my guys. Well, Utah, I didn't really think about it until the signing of Mo Bamba. So with the signing of Mo Bamba, I think if you include Jackson Hayes, who rounded off goes to 7 feet, I think that brings you to six 7-footers on the Utah Jazz team. Has anybody been talking about that as far as that's concerned? Because again, bringing on Mo Bamba after his auspicious ending last time to his NBA career, before now it's getting revived, seems to be very interesting where Utah is leaning to. Again, a very talented team, an upcoming team, a lot more is expected this season, but just really interesting what they're doing with their height on this team.
Yeah, I think their approach has been replacing Kessler in the aggregate. I do think between, bringing in Hayes, bringing in Bamba, I still obviously I'm not reporting anything. I do wonder if they're going to bring back Kevin Love just because he was such a good veteran presence and didn't do too badly when they said, okay, Kevin, we actually need you to play tonight. And even and we've talked about him before, Kyle Filipowski, I actually think he's going to have a pretty big role this season. Not in Kessler's role, obviously, but he was actually part of some of Utah's best lineups last year before they really embraced the tank. So I do think that the Jazz are really going to, their focus is just trying to see if even if they can't replace the talent that Kessler had, if the guys that they brought in and the guys that they have kept will be able to replace him in other areas as well as in terms of impact. I'm a little skeptical that it will work out pretty well. I do think that they will enter a very interesting crossroads this coming season because I think that they'll be good, but I also and maybe this will be a discussion for when we start doing season previews. But my read on it for right now is that I think if Utah is in that, yes, we're actually pretty good, but we're clearly not in the contender tier, but we also have the contracts, the assets to vault ourselves to that contender tier. It will all depend on how good they are and if they are just that one piece away. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do to address that, if they address that right away, and how they will.
And I don't want to sleep on Nurkic either, because I think Yusuf Nurkic, as far as his year last year was pretty solid. Again, when the expectations are not, he's one of those players that when the expectations are not too heavy, he seems to meet them or exceed them. When you give him said fat contract, he doesn't meet up to those expectations. So again, thought it would give you a solid effort, and I think he goes into the season as the early favorite for the starting job, like you said, in place of Kessler. Now he can't replace the rim protection, but with Triple J there, that should at least pick up a lot of that slack.
It's amazing how much Nurkic really did reverse the narrative on him, because no Jazz fan was excited about him when they first got him. But even after half the season playing, by the time the summer started, like, Jazz fans wanted Kessler back, but they were also like, please bring Nurkic back. Just because, like, even if he used to be a really good rim protector, not anymore, but he still is a pretty smart player who Utah kind of recognized. He can still pass out of the high post. He's still a huge body. Still gets a ton of rebounds. Like, he's definitely not Kessler. Even when he was, this is based on just my idea of Kessler, which, maybe I'm giving Lakers fans hope when I say this. He's not the same player as Kessler. Even when he was in his prime, he wasn't as good as Kessler. I think probably will be once he reaches his. But I do think Nurkic is like he proved last season. There's still enough left in the tank that I think that Utah made a good bet, believing that he can fill in as a starting center. He won't. The ceiling is definitely lower going from Kessler to Nurkic, but I do think that Nurkic doesn't just provide his talent, but the chemistry he showed with his Jazz team, with the Jazz players last year, I think was pretty easy to notice.
I will say this when it comes to Yusuf Nurkic. I mean, he does things in I don't want to say Jokic style fashion, because that's where they both started from. They were both on the same team together. But he has the way, like you said, his facilitation at the top of the key, the fact that he can get, or one of the best rebounders in the league. He can still do things for you on both sides of the ball that can really be beneficial, that maybe Kessler doesn't need to bring or cannot bring, because he's doing different things. Like you said, Kessler still has the genuine upside that could surpass anything that Yusuf Nurkic could ever do on that. But still, for what you're paying him, what you're compensating him at compared to what Kessler signed for, it is a good value deal. And again, any rim protection concerns, if he stays healthy, should be alleviated by the fact you have Triple J and 5 other 7-footers to throw out there at any given point in time.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't think anyone's complaining about Nurkic now, again, compared to last summer, where everyone was like, that's all they got for Sexton. But I do think that Nurkic has plenty left in the tank. And also what's very encouraging is that he wanted to be in Utah. I don't even think he even not reporting anything, I don't even think he considered anyone else. He was just like, yeah, I just want to stay. As long as I think it's good enough value, I will stay with the Jazz. And the Jazz, I think, made it clear to him that the feeling's mutual. I'm not sure if he will stay as their starting center for the duration of that contract. Like, I do think that if an opportunity presents itself, they will try to upgrade. I mean, it's Danny Ainge, so he doesn't care about sentiment. But I think everyone's looking forward to seeing what this team will look like with Nurkic coming back. Granted, he's probably the least how should I say this? The least talented of their starting 5. But even then, everyone's kind of like, yeah, we're okay with that. Let's just see how it goes. No one's panicking, I should say.
No one's panicking. I do think he fits a certain part of the mold, like you said, for if this starting lineup clicks, it might actually work itself out better because of what he can do and what he can bring to the team, offensively with his facilitation and defensively with his devotion to rebounding and the fact that he's a big body inside as well. But tell me about your excitement for the team before we get into Debanza, as far as what you thought of his summer in his limited action, which Not surprising. Kind of disappointing when that happens always. I really love for these kids to get a chance to, get a full run in summer league, but that didn't happen for Debanza, but we saw, what, 54 or 55 points in summer league. So he scoring wise, it's there for him. But before we really get into Debanza, how is this team shaping out for you with the acquisitions and the moves and just the return to health? What's upcoming for this team because of what they did this summer?
I think what I'm looking forward to seeing is Keontae George and Darryn Peterson share the floor together. I think that there's a very solid chance this is going to be maybe the best Jazz backcourt they've ever had. As far as talent goes, it's hard to think of Jazz backcourts that shared that amount between the two of them. I mean, John Stockton and Jeff Hornacek is probably the greatest Jazz backcourt they ever had, not just because of how good they were, but because of how much chemistry there was between them. So I'm looking forward to seeing George and Peterson. I don't expect them to dominate from the start, but we saw George take a leap last season, and we saw the flashes from Peterson. He also wasn't too great in the summer league as well, or I should say in Las Vegas. In Salt Lake,
Yeah,
he was
But Peterson got a longer look than Debanza, which I really appreciated Utah for doing, because Utah could have followed suit from what Washington did with AJ Debanza and given him just like a cup of coffee and a couple games and said we're done. But at least Utah gave Peterson a longer look. And yes, like Cameron Carr of the Lakers, the longer look in summer league was not as great as a look as you wanted it to see. Their shot went off, it started to go awry, it started to struggle a little bit from the field. But the fact that you're giving them that time when they have really just nothing outside of informal workouts for the next 2 months that they're facing. I really want to praise Utah for doing that, and the Lakers as well. No matter if they're struggling or not, you put them out there for extended minutes and at least give them more time to showcase their game and what the things that they need to work on and what the things they can do already.
Yeah, and I think what impressed me the most about Peterson at summer league, his poise was just amazing. It just seemed like when he was on the floor, he knew exactly what he was doing. Like, you can have a ton of talent, but not know what to do with it. And when I saw Peterson out there, it just looked like every single play, he controlled everything. Like, he was not afraid no matter what the opposition threw at him. He always knew what play to run. And I think that between that and having George, who not even he didn't even just ascend as a player, he ascended as a teammate last year. Like, the narrative on him also flipped, like Nurkic's did with Utah. He went from the guy who many thought was maybe 1 foot out the door to the guy that everyone wants to keep. Like, they're definitely going to play maybe a little game of chicken next summer with George, but I do think that if he and Peterson work out, like, they won't I don't expect them to dominate out of the gate, but I do like the talent from the two of them is palpable. I do think that they could have immediately really good chemistry. Don't expect Utah to win, a ton of games like this season. This is just another step forward. So, but I also am looking forward to seeing how they do on both ends of the floor, because I think offensively, there's no question about what upside they possess. Defensively is going to be the question, because George hasn't proven much defensively. Peterson projects more to be better on that front. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they can work off of each other. Offensively, it's obvious what they can do. Defensively, it's more of a mystery, but it's also it's an intriguing mystery to see how they will work together. That's what I'm looking forward to most. Like with the Jazz, I'm trying to think of, as far as like the rest of the roster, I'm looking forward to Bailey in year 2. I'm looking forward to seeing like how they mix and match these pieces, because like Bailey looked really good towards the end of his rookie year. Lauri Markkanen, the shackles are finally off Lauri Markkanen. Finally. Like, I am so excited to see one of the NBA's most unique stars finally be able to play up to the level that he clearly wants to play, and the Jazz clearly know he can play at, but they held him back because they gradually embraced the tank. Last season, he started out amazingly, and then the Jazz were like, yeah, sorry, dude, we're throwing the season away. But anyway, now there's nothing holding him back. I can't wait to see what lineups are going to work best with Unleashed Markkanen, year 2 Bailey, and George and Peterson.
I'll say this: when it comes right down to it with Utah, you talked about how that okay, there's going to be a market improvement, but that the improvement will still only get them so far, and that your expectations for them competing in the West uh, are good, are reasonable, but as far as being at another level, like a growth we saw from San Antonio last season, you don't want to go ahead there. And I can understand why, absolutely. But with that said, though, with the older players like Triple J and also as well Lowry Markkinen, how much patience will they have as far as while those young guys develop? That's the question I have because again, I think this is a good team. I think on paper that this is a good team that can compete in the West for a back end um, playoff spot as far as it's concerned, maybe a play in, what have you, in that mix. Anybody who thinks that they can do better, but if they don't, if they just right in and around there is there that question that arises with Markin and Triple J about wanting to stay there long term while those other young guys develop.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the real question. I think that they will be good, and what really will determine what they do it will depend on how good they are. And I do think that there likely will be some centers who will hit the market in the over the first few months of the season. If Utah, I could see the Jazz winning a couple games, but I could also see them not necessarily beating the Thunder or the Spurs, but giving them great games. Jaren Jackson Jr. I think I wrote an article about this, has never lost to Victor Wembanyama. He's like the foil for Wemby. So I do think that if that continues to hold true with the Jazz, I do think that kind of tells them, hey, we may not necessarily be on this level, but we could be one move away from really making the Spurs be like, oh, I don't want to face that team in a playoff series. I mean, the Spurs basically just did that to the Thunder this past season. So I do think that I think they're trying to find the balance between we want to keep expectations low immediately, but if this team exceeds that, then we definitely have an intriguing prospect on our hands as to whether or not we want to strike while the iron is hot or just wait our turn. Because Markkinen and JJJ, they are technically the older guys, but they're still mid to late 20s. I think I could be wrong. So I do wonder if the Jazz are kind of they're trying to. We have seen teams try to operate with two timelines, and the Jazz kind of fit that bill right now. So I am excited to see what approach they will have if it turns out, no, this team's good. This team's really good right now. Let's try to do something now. And we've seen teams that do that, and we've seen sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
I will say this again when it comes to what you were talking about with Victor Wembanyama. I do think that the only players outside of a double teams and whatnot that really give him trouble as far as big bodies with strength, like we saw with Mitchell Robinson and Towns, muscle them up in the finals. But those guys like Antetokounmpo and Triple J that have speed and agility and even a little bit of strength to face off against Wembanyama, those are the guys that are, if anybody gives him trouble, it's those type of individuals that are close enough height wise, but have the ability to go ahead and stay out on the floor with him if he decides to stay out at the 3-point line or tries to drive and stay with him on that. That's the only individual that's seen him that give him any type of real consistent problems as far as it's concerned. And if that's the case, Utah may want to be on a little bit faster timeline because of it. If they see, like you said, that Triple J can at least slow down Victor Wembanyama to at least a small amount, if that's possible.
Mm-hmm. And something that going along with that, I think Utah, there's definitely enough in the room that they're not ignoring. They can't pay all these young guys that they have. So I do wonder if they are going to utilize them, trade them for someone who can help win now. I don't know who that is. And I do think because Utah's kind of like, yeah, we kind of like our roster the way it is. They're going to evaluate what are our flaws or what strengths do we have that, if we just made it a little bit stronger, it will help our chances in the playoffs. I'm looking forward to seeing their front court rotation. I think is, even without Kessler, it's definitely got some intrigue to it. So, and I am looking forward to seeing who very clearly should be part of this team going forward, and who, because by virtue of they're not ready for this moment yet, they're probably better off on a younger team. Like, so I'm like, I'll just name examples. Cody Williams, for example, he looked better at the end of last season. Still not great, but at least doesn't look hopeless anymore like he did in his rookie year. So this will definitely be a telling season as to whether or not the Jazz say, yes, we want to spend our time as a rising playoff contender trying to make him better. If they think, actually, he's probably better off on a younger team that can afford to be patient with him, because we might not be if we are just that good. And Bryce Sensabaugh, who I think is probably more NBA ready than Cody Williams, definitely doesn't have the defensive potential that Williams does. And we're finally going to see, like, he has shown flashes of being, kind of not the exact same player, but kind of a Jordan Clarkson type of man. He can score. So if we see, I think if he proves that, no, I can do this for a winning team, that will compel the Jazz to keep him. But it will depend on, can he maintain this over the course of a season?
And if that 3-point shot still stays where it's at, then you're talking about the guy who can give you that kind of high-end shooting, which not a lot of teams possess. So that's something very interesting with Sensabaugh, because if you kept your eye on Sensabaugh, that's the one thing he can do. He likes to shoot. And the thing is, when he gets in a rhythm, as you saw by the numbers, at least later in the season, it can be really interesting to see what he can put up coming off the bench for a team as well.
Yeah, it's been a little bit uneven. He like Bailey and like Cody Williams, he looked better towards the end. I just want to see this over the course of a season, because the Jazz have seen such talented players that never quite got it together, which is why they got rid of them. The best example of this is Rodney Hood or Dante Exum. Of course, Exum just got hurt all the time. Hood, like, he kind of, not to go too off the rails, but he was kind of cut from the same cloth as Jeff Green, where you're just like, why can't this guy play this well every night? Why is it once every 2 weeks he explodes? So Sensabaugh, I think, has proven a little bit more, but not enough to convince me that, like, oh, he definitely should be part of the future. But if he proves, yes, I am not Rodney Hood. I am a consistent player. I think the Jazz will keep him around.
Once again, it's Matt John. Please go ahead and support him today at thejnotes.com. For you Lakers fans out there watching this, want to go ahead and check it out, because his latest article that just dropped right before we went on the air, it's about Derek Fisher, as far as one of the interesting things in Laker and Jazz lore. I want to go ahead and check out, if you aren't familiar with it, if you're a younger member of the audience, go ahead and check it out. But if you are an older member, you'll remember that time indeed, as far as all the things surrounding it, as far as the move from Utah to LA indeed. But good article, by the way. I got a chance to read it. I saw when we were coming on, I was like, oh, there you go. Derek Fisher right there for you. So with that, please check it out right there for you at thejnotes.com. Before we get to the last thing I want to talk to you about with LeBron James and, of course, Kevin Durant, that you noted so well before we also went on the air, I wanted to ask your thoughts on this, the major showcase at the Summer League. And, they love to do this and pair this up. Number 1 versus number 2, AJ Devanza for the Washington Wizards, and then Darryn Peterson for the Utah Jazz. How do you think the matchup went down? Does it give you any extra confidence in how Utah ultimately got their number 2 draft pick and his future going forward? Any glimpses that you saw of the two as far as who may be the better player of the two? Anything that you come out of it as far as that? Because I know you, of all people, were really keen probably watching that number 1 versus number 2 matchup.
Well, obviously both of them showed their high-end talent, but they also showed that they definitely will have their flaws. It's why their rookie seasons are definitely going to be interesting. It's kind of funny, the similarities between the Jazz and the Wizards, because, the Jazz, they've been slowly building up to this. The Wizards, by contrast, they kind of, like, how do I say this? It's like last year they were like, all right, now we are building for a playoff team for next year. We got Anthony Davis and Trae Young, and they're also trying to make themselves a team of 2 timelines. So, like, Peterson and DeBonsa, I think they definitely gave a little bit of a hint of like, despite their immense talent, there's going to be growing pains there. And funny enough, a little off topic, but seeing Caleb Wilson and Cameron Boozer, it's kind of crazy to me that this could be a draft where, the third and fourth pick might actually be the best picks in this draft, but it may not reflect at all at Peterson or DeBonsa, just because Boozer and Wilson are just that insanely talented. I don't think I've ever seen a draft with top 4 players just be this insanely good. Be like, you can clearly see the vision with all of them, that like they could all be game changers in the NBA within 2 years. Like it's insanity. It's why like we saw the Tankapalooza that we did. But as far as like with Peterson and DeBonsa, like I think like it's I don't think my opinion has changed on either of them. I think that they are going to be excellent prospects. It might like they're playing for teams that, even if they are, they're on the forefront of what they hope to be, a run to the playoffs, they're not putting all the pressure on them right away. They have the veterans to say, no, we like, you know what, you can take a minute to kind of, get your feet wet and and just try to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. But still super excited to see like what's to come from them.
So with that said, my friend, again, I think the future's bright for Peterson. I ultimately think it was the best option available for Utah because of the natural fit that Peterson has in the Utah offense. They had a glaring hole at shooting guard, in my opinion. I think Bailey is he's more of a small forward to me. I don't know if you feel that way, same way as well, but I just think it was a better, more natural fit for him, and the fact that it was there. The need was there by Utah, and the opportunity was there for Peterson. I think it just fits best. I think ultimately in the long run, you're going to like that fit better than, even though both Boozer is going to be really good and DeBonsa is going to be really good. I think this class is really going to have a lot of good players from it. So I don't think you would have lost either which way. It just seems like from the get-go, it's a more natural fit for the Utah Jazz.
Peterson came with the fewest questions, if you ask me. Like, and when I say fewest questions, I don't mean as a prospect, but also how he fit on the roster. Because you draft Boozer, then that kind of is like, oh, so what does that mean with Kessler? Are you trading him, keeping him? I think that would have led to some questions about, are they planning to get rid of Kessler? Are they going to have Boozer? Boozer would be my rookie of the year pick for the sole reason that Memphis is not in the same place as Washington or Utah. Like Washington or Utah, they're going to depend on those veterans first and foremost, and just they're more than happy to let the younger players like, hey, do what you can, but we're not going to throw you, we're not going to throw you the wolves just yet. We're going to throw you to the wolves to some degree. Compared to Boozer, who I think Memphis is going to be like, no, you go ahead, go to town. Like you have the keys, just do what you want. There's no pressure. Like we're willing to go through just about anything. By the way, I like what the Grizzlies did this offseason. Yeah. And even Wilson out, like the Bulls have been like the most directionless team over the past decade, and they finally got someone. Like it's kind of hard not to be happy for them too. So I love the fact that this draft, the way it shook out, it helped all 4 of these teams. Like it helped 2 of the NBA's two franchises that have really struggled to kind of like build a consistent winning product in Washington and Chicago. Gave Utah what may have been the last piece of what could be the most glorious era since Malone and Stockton. And in Memphis, like Cameron Boozer is going to make them forget everything with Ja Morant. Like it's hard not to be excited about all 4 of these teams, both this coming season, and I think for the next several years.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be, or at least it's going to go down before all is said and done, as one of the best drafts of this century, I think, as far as quality and depth is concerned. There may be no elite superstar, super duper star player that changes the face of the game, but there may be individuals, a number of individuals that are multi-time all-stars or really significant contributors to their teams. I really think the depth from what we saw in Summer League from some of these guys, these rookies that, they played well right away, even second rounders played well right away, like Thomas and Thornton, for Cleveland and Houston. Those kids really balled out as well. And you don't usually see that in abundance at the Summer League from the rookies. You usually see it from the second guys or the guys that are trying to make a name for themselves. You usually don't see it from a complete list of rookies like you saw in this year's Summer League. So I'm glad I could take that away from as well. But yeah, the future is bright for this draft, and I think it will go down as one of the best in a long, long time.
I'll say this much now that you bring it up. Like typically with like loaded draft classes, like typically teams do trade their star players for the higher ones, and we didn't see that this year. So I wonder if that reflects more on teams just saying no. We'd rather have someone like I'm just spitballing here, someone like Keaton Wagler on our team rather than trade for someone who may be more ready now, but Wagler just we pay him a team friendly rookie contract, and he may rise through the ranks to be one of our best players ever, rather than get someone like I don't know. I'm trying rather than Zion Williamson, so to speak. Of course, however you feel about Zion, you know what I mean. Of just like no, we don't want to take that guy because we know what that guy can do. We'd rather have someone whose ceiling is rather ambiguous on our team.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing how these draft choices work themselves out, not only for Utah and the Lakers, but for the rest of the NBA going forward. And looks like, again, a good year for the NBA draft indeed. But before we head on out, my friend, speaking of the NBA, we know all recently the king himself, Mr. LeBron James, made his decision. He sent down the decree and said, I made my decision, the final decision, quote unquote. We'll see. I'll see if that happens. But with that said, he has decided to move on to the Philadelphia 76ers. And you noted about Kevin Durant's comments, and it didn't come from the burner phone this time, came straight from him in regards to that Philadelphia with its current starting five with, of course, VJ Edgecombe, of course, Tyrese Maxey, Jaylen Brown, LeBron, and then Joel Embiid could end up being or playing at a higher level than his Golden State teams that he moved on as a free agent and jumped on to put them into the stratosphere as well. So I don't know if I can get there. First off, I don't know if their health can get them there. That's the first thing, especially with Embiid when it comes right down to it. But your thoughts, my friend, he may have just been doing that as a smokescreen just to try and build them up so they could be easier to knock down. But your thoughts on where your belief stands after the LeBron signing in Philadelphia.
So you want me to start with LeBron or Durant?
You go wherever, which way you want to go, my friend, as long as your burner phone ain't ringing.
Well, first of all, I'll just say this, like Durant posted that on Threads thinking who reads Threads. And I was like, quite a few people do read Threads. I have a Threads account, but I don't use it all that often.
I do too, but it pops up on my Facebook feed. So I just said, forget it. So there you go.
As far as LeBron goes, like his decision, I would say it makes a lot of sense because from a talent perspective, Philadelphia was probably his best bet. And it also allows him to play point guard, which I think he wanted to do. I don't think he may have had the chance to do that in, say, Minnesota or in Cleveland, like maybe in Miami, but like in Philadelphia, like it's funny because I feel like he and Durant kind of share the same MO of like, we want to go to the most talented teams possible and just ask questions later. And I feel like both of them, even though they have had disasters, we're just like, no, you need the guys that do the little things. You don't just add a bunch of talent and then just say, okay, like everything will work itself out. Like, I'm sorry to bring up like bad Lakers memories, but he learned this from the Lakers. You traded Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Kyle Kuzma for Russell Westbrook, and we all kind of knew that was a bad idea. But he did it thinking, oh, we just added a superstar talent. It's like, and my hot take, without regurgitating what anyone else has said, they could have gotten Kyrie Irving, and that would have added a few more wins. But the rest of your roster after, say, LeBron, Kyrie, and Anthony Davis, that wasn't a good roster. That was a horribly constructed roster. It wasn't just like Russ was obviously a disaster, but it was also the rest of the roster was just like it was filled with over the hill veterans who he thought, oh, well, they're not what they were, but they're still good enough they can fill the roles left by Kuzma, KCP, and Caruso. And like now you learn, no, they didn't. And then Durant did the same thing. He joins Golden State, and he even said this. He said, well, you join a team with two other 20-point scorers, and everyone said that, that was a bad thing that I did that. I was like, but that's not who Golden State was. Like Golden State had those 20-point scorers, but they had Iguodala, Draymond, Livingston. Those guys just cover so much ground between all of them. They don't fill in that quota of just scoring as much as possible. And it's also funny because Durant was clearly referencing when he joined the Warriors, but he also joined another team with 22 other 20-point scorers in Phoenix. That was a disaster for everyone. And you know why? Because Phoenix didn't have the other pieces. And ironically enough, the most infamous of all was Nurkic. Like it's just it's good to have that upfront talent, but in this current iteration of the NBA, you need guys that do the little things. If you just have a bunch of guys that can score, that's a good. No one's saying that's a bad thing, but you need, like, I would say, I'm trying to think of, like, you need the Shane Battiers, like you need like even the aging Ray Allen, like, who may not have been, obviously wasn't a star anymore, but he was a huge difference maker on that Miami team. So I do feel like LeBron and Durant kind of say, oh, well, as long as I'm on these immensely talented teams, that's all that matters. And it's kind of a shame that they still think that, because we've seen from their histories, like, no, it's not that simple. I am looking forward to seeing what Philadelphia. I do have questions about Philadelphia. Like, I totally understand, like, you got Jaylen Brown, and if that got you LeBron James, everyone would have done what you would have done. But now your roster is filled with guys who can score, and I'm kind of questioning, like, do you have those, like, guys who do the little things? Because I've watched Jaylen Brown, like, and I won't disparage him at all. Like, I think most Celtics fans are still kind of reeling from what happened. All I'm going to say is that he does better when you ask more of him. If you ask him to do less, he does worse. And in Philadelphia, I'm not going to say that's what they're going to ask him to do, but it's definitely on the table, I should say. Like, Brown did worse when the Celtics said, all right, Brown, you're just our 3-and-D guy next to Kyrie and Hayward. And he didn't do that well with that. But then when they said, all right, Brown, well, Kyrie's gone, so now we're going to ask you to score more for us, and he did awesome. So with the Sixers, he is going to be competing for touches with Maxey, Embiid, BJ, and to some extent LeBron, though I do think LeBron will compromise a bit. So, like, I won't say that this will fail, but I do think that there's going to be some growing pains that will be immense enough that we are going to see a lot of, like, oh, maybe the Sixers weren't maybe the Sixers do need to round up the edges a little bit because they have too much star power.
And again, health is going to be a key, because if Embiid gets hurt again, or LeBron gets hurt, or there's a key injury there, that's also going to be a problem indeed. But you also forgot to mention the Brooklyn. Remember, they had that super team with Harden, Irving, and Durant there.
And funny enough about that team, that actually was a more functional team, and it wasn't just because those guys could score. Harden can play make. He is an all-time playmaker.
They just didn't stay healthy that year.
It was kind of crazy, like how that was kind of that was as high risk and high reward as it gets. And in Philadelphia, like, Jaylen Brown, excellent defender, never was, like, he doesn't really quarterback an elite defense. He's more of a good piece of one. Like, it's kind of like I hate to say it, it's kind of like Walker Kessler in a sense of, like, he can be a great piece of a great defense, but he doesn't transform one by himself, I should say. So, and the Sixers I think they're going to say, all right, Jaylen, you're our best defender now. You're going to cover the other team's best player for us. Like, LeBron James was once a really good defender. He's not anymore. Like, same thing with Embiid. Once upon a time, great defender. Not anymore. So I want Brown. I will not root against Brown, but I am questioning whether or not this experiment is going to work where you put him into this different role because he has not in the past.
Well, there you go. Great insight from our man here from the J Notes. It is Matt John. Also, want to mention on the J Notes, go ahead for you Lakers fans. There's an interesting article as well about Colin Sexton and Walker Kessler, and more on Walker Kessler if you take a look at the past few great articles right there in the J Notes with Matt John. But Matt, you're doing great work on that site. I know I've got you lined up probably a couple more times this month. I'm going to try and get you in to discuss what's going on, and then we'll do a team preview in September. I think I'll do my team previews then. But getting back into it, trying to get through these summer months. Any last thoughts before we head on out, my friend?
I'll say this much about that Derek Fisher piece that I wrote. As I was writing it, I realized, Fisher actually was kind of a game changer for the Lakers in that Jazz series because he was still pretty good when he went back to the Lakers. Now, the one misconception, because I'm seeing this from Jazz fans, and I say this as an objective observer, they were like, oh, he joined the Lakers because they were a contender. Not in 2007. When they got Gasol, they were, but 2007 was back when they had the Kobe drama. So I do believe wholeheartedly Fisher just wanted to go back to the Lakers. That I'm not disputing. But he wasn't necessarily ring chasing. He just wanted to be on the Lakers again. But it was funny to me how that all played out. And I don't really believe him at all that he was just like, oh, I was just doing this for LA. I was like, nah, you just wanted to go back to the Lakers. I'm not a Jazz fan, but I'm just like, I kind of understand why Jazz fans are still like, no, I don't believe you. But also Jazz fans just don't care. But it was kind of funny to me looking back on that series between the Jazz and Lakers, just being like, man, if Fisher was on the Jazz instead of the Lakers, that I won't say the Jazz would have won that series, but the margins would have been tighter.
I can't say I blame you on that. And again, like you said, 2008, the Lakers lost, I believe, to the Celtics. And that was the year that they lost the Celtics. But it wasn't until 2009 and 2010 that the Lakers ultimately found success with those years as well. So, like you said, if you're basing it off of 2007, then obviously that wasn't going to be the case for what happened. But yeah, it just I don't want to go into it either because obviously it just the fact he still uses to this day, the what happened to his daughter, the unfortunate eye cancer as far as is concerned. And again, whether or not what his motivations, only he can tell you and only he can know for himself. And he'll tell everybody that's the specific reason, whether or not it was just for the going back to Lakers. Again, I don't want to get it. I really don't want to go ahead and speculate for because it deals with something that's a very touchy issue with his daughter's eye cancer. Again, all we were worried about at that point in time was the health of his daughter. It was great that he was coming back, but if you really cared about concerned about the individual, you just cared that his daughter was going to get the care that she needed.
Yeah, and I hope that like people understand that there were some idiot Jazz fans who definitely handled that situation horribly.
Oh, they didn't care.
But I hope people realize that doesn't speak for all Jazz fans. Like Jazz fans have every right to be like, no, we don't believe you. But at the same time, there's a line you don't cross when mocking someone who has cancer, like especially if it's a kid. So I'm glad that I think his daughter's okay, right?
Tatum Fisher, according to what I'm looking up, in fact, as you're speaking, I'm looking up now. It says that overcame a rare form of eye cancer as a child. So,
and
I guess she's okay. Yeah, I think everything is doing okay for her. So yes, continued success with her as far as it's concerned. And again, the Derek Fisher saga continues, and he always seems to get his name in the news every now and then for something. So it's Derek Fisher indeed. But again, we're grateful for what he did for the Lakers, and again, thankful to the Millers for allowing him to go ahead and be released from his contract, and ultimately did work out for the Lakers with 2 extra championships indeed. Now, as a part of that team, I do want to thank the Millers for allowing him to do just that. So again, but I can see why from your perspective or Utah Jazz fans' perspective, that part of it as far as what would happen if he would have stayed on that team.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely an intriguing what if, of course. Added to quite a few that the Jazz have. So
Well, there you go. You can read more about it at thejnotes.com. There's a ton of great articles Matt has written there. You got to go ahead and cover it because he is staying active on a daily basis right there at the J Notes. It is, of course, Matt John. We're going to keep in touch with him, making sure he's okay during the summer to keep us okay during the summer, quite frankly, because it's pretty darn slow. But anything that comes out of any news, interesting notes, we're going to go ahead and make sure we cover it before we get into team previews next month. But make sure you were still got some good things going on in August for you with some really sound, very clean, very good NBA observations.